This is the most infamous rant in comedy history.
I hate this f***ing city. I hate the way you eat. You guys all gonna go see Rocky 19? Oh, dude, I think you can win. Listen, I'm out of time. You guys were here, man. Thank you very much. All of you go f*** yourselves.
The Philadelphia rant from Bill Burr is one of the most iconic moments of stand-up comedy to ever take place. It was the legendary rant that took Bill Burr from being a really funny and successful working comedian to one of the most popular comedians to ever do it with a $1 million story. To get a crystal clear understanding of what happened on that fateful day, we need to start off by establishing the full timeline of events. In 2006, comedians Anthony Cumia and Greg Hughes, better known as Opie and Anthony, would organize a national comedy tour in a variety of different cities across the country titled Opie and Anthony's Traveling Virus Comedy Tour. This comedy tour would feature a lot of regular guests on the Opie and Anthony radio show and also comedians that worked at Comedy Central. If you're even a casual fan of Opie and Anthony's radio show, you'd know this means the tour had some of the greatest comedians in the world, such as Patrice O'Neal, Louis C.K., Bobby Kelly, Tracy Morgan, and of course Bill Burr. Furthermore, the Opie and Anthony Traveling Virus Comedy Tour started August 5th, 2006, and the first city was Worcester, Massachusetts. Obviously, this was in Bill Burr's home state of Massachusetts, so he would perform on this show and do absolutely amazing. Then the next show would be held on August 26th at the PNC Bank Arts Center in Holmdel, New Jersey. This show would go on to be absolutely massive for the tour, so much so that it actually broke the record for best-selling comedy show at that venue, with the previous record being held by Jay Leno. With these two great shows in the book, it seemed like things were just perfectly dandy on this comedy tour, but that was about to change drastically. Then a little over a week later, the next show was set to be in Camden, New Jersey at the Freedom Mortgage Pavilion, formerly known as the Tweeter Center, on September 9, 2006. While not technically in Philadelphia, the Tweeter Center is adjacent to Philly, being located right across the Delaware River in the Camden Waterfront Entertainment District. The lineup of comedians was absolutely stacked that night, but unfortunately, the audience was full of drunk Philly assholes who couldn't be bothered to show respect to the performers. To begin with, the show started and the audience seemed a little rowdy, but they were still an audience. However, eventually one comedian went on stage, and within a few minutes of performing his set, the Philly crowd started to boo him, and he would go on to say goodbye to the crowd and walk off as they were still booing. Bill Burr said this comedian in particular was a Philly native, and to make matters worse, his entire family, who is also from Philly, was in the audience and watched the whole thing take place.
And brings up the first act, who I'm not going to name his name because he went out there. He was from Philly, had all his family there and all that type of stuff.
A lot of comedy fans have claimed that the person who was booed off stage was Dom Irrera, but this isn't true because Bill himself confirmed that it was not Dom Irrera.
And it's not Dom Irrera, if everybody keeps guessing that one.
Now, of course, Bill could be lying here, but I seriously doubt he is. When you look at the list of comedians from Opie and Anthony's Traveling Virus Comedy Tour, the only two comedians from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania are Jimmy Schubert and Dom Irrera. I actually received a comment from somebody on my Bill Burr documentary who told me Jimmy Schubert was the comedian who was booed off stage, and they also said they are his cousin and they were in attendance that night. Obviously, there's no way for me to 100% confirm this, so take it with a grain of salt, but given Bill's denial of Dom Irrera being booed off stage, it would make sense for Jimmy Schubert to be the comedian who was booed. Then after Jimmy's set, Rich Voss went up to do his set, and later in Rich's set, the hostile Philly crowd began to boo him as well, and upon hearing the boos, he exclaimed to the audience if they kept on booing him that he was going to bring Jimmy Schubert back up on stage. This won the crowd back temporarily, but as Bill says, it ultimately gave them the power of deciding who was worthy of performing and who was not, and that's not how a comedy show works.
And Voss starts trying to do his shit, which was impossible, dude. Yeah. It was like this. So they start turning on him, and he goes, you know, watch your mouths or I'll bring so-and-so back. And he shit on the first guy. And to me, he just turned the keys over to the crowd where they do the Caesar thumbs up, thumbs down.
A lot of comedy fans assume that everybody was doing badly because of the stage set and rowdy crowd, but Bill actually dispels this rumor when talking about the event.
Because one of the big myths is that everyone was bombing. They weren't. Patrice killed, Ralphie killed.
So not everyone was bombing, but the crowd certainly was on edge and ready to boo anyone who didn't come to meet their standards. Then when Bill went up, everything changed. Bill immediately went into his act and tried to do some jokes, but then when the crowd wasn't enjoying it, they started to boo him. In response to this, Bill let out the pent-up rage and frustration with the audience, and he immediately went on the offensive.
I'm cooking my brain talking about nothing. I'm just walking around like, yeah, I just got a cheeseburger. Oh, f*** all you people. You know what, you f***ing losers? I hope you all f***ing die, and I hope the f***ing Eagles never win the Super Bowl. Go f*** yourselves. F*** all you motherfuckers, and f*** the Flyers. F*** all of you. F***ing goddamn f***ing losers. Booing Dom Herrera. Suck it.
All the years of living in Boston and having his balls busted came out in an angry, fiery secession. Bill was not taking any shit from these drunk cretins who didn't even deserve a comedy show, and he absolutely laid into them without letting a single minute of his time go to waste. If you think that one clip is where it stops, then man, are you in for a treat. He proceeds to go so much harder and starts wishing these people death and destruction and famine. Check this out.
What do you want me to talk about? Hey, throw out some topics. Let's talk about heart disease, something you're all gonna fucking die of, and I'm gonna laugh at your fucking funerals. It's gonna be great. You're all gonna get fucking cancer, which is fantastic because all your fucking heads are shaved anyways. No one's even gonna notice. You're gonna get fired for coming to work too late because they're not gonna notice that you have fucking bone marrow cancer. The only thing that's gonna give it away is me laughing at you in the fucking background. You fucking bunch of losers with your fucking cell phone pictures. Fucking suck it.
This was absolutely insane. All the comedians were trying to be diplomatic with this audience, but Bill wasn't extending a single olive branch to the Philly frenzy. After wishing them death from cancer and heart disease, he talks about terrorism. I'm not going to spoil it, I'll just show you.
Ben Franklin Bridge, you fucking one bridge having piece of shit city that no one gives a fuck about. The terrorists will never bomb you people because you're fucking worthless and no one cares about you. You are this high above New Orleans. No one gives a shit.
What's even crazier about this clip is the crowd goes from booing him to laughing and clapping while he's completely eviscerating the entire city. It's almost like these alcoholic degenerates respected him even more for not putting up with their shit. Also, the entire time Bill is destroying Philadelphia, he's counting down his time because he refuses to walk off stage early. He was going to take every available second to cook the ever-living shit out of this crowd of boozed-up mongoloids. By the tail end of the set, you could tell that Bill really doesn't even want to be there, and he actually reflects on this in a later podcast appearance we will watch in a second. But he refuses to walk off early now that he has every right to sit there and tell Philadelphia how he really feels while getting paid thousands of dollars for it. Then when Bill concludes the Philly rant, he shares his incredibly abrasive and direct closing remarks with the audience and walks off to a standing ovation. Check this out.
Listen, I'm out of time. You guys were here, man. Thank you very much. All of you go f*** yourselves in your own assholes. Have a good night. You guys, let's hear from Bill Burr.
What a crazy way to walk off. Even at the end when he ruthlessly trashed Philly for 13 minutes straight, when asked to give it up for Bill Burr, the people just lose their minds and couldn't help but stand up and cheer for him. Bill's immediate reaction to the show was that it was a complete disaster, but all of the comedians backstage waiting for him were telling him how he did an amazing job and that he didn't realize how big this was going to be for him. Bob Saget was one of the people that did this. Bob Saget went on the Joe Rogan Experience, and he shares the moments with Bill Burr right after the Philly rant. Check this out.
He literally attacked the crowd. It made Bill Burr a legend.
That was when Bill, I was standing there.
He roasted Philadelphia.
I was standing there. I was under the fucking monitor. And at the end, the boos were as loud as the cheers. I think he got a standing ovation. He didn't see it.
Oh.
He comes off stage like a fighter. He's all sweaty. Did you see that? It was fucking horrible. What the fuck was that? I went, Bill, that was great. Are you kidding? That was fucking amazing.
No, he killed. He killed.
And then he still didn't believe me. And then I said, you're going to remember this. You don't know what just happened here. If there's a tape of this is going to change. You don't even know.
So Bill was not happy with how it went. He was actually incredibly embarrassed and didn't even want to talk about it. He didn't realize that this unbridled rage he unleashed on an obnoxious and annoying crowd would go on to be one of the most legendary moments in comedy history. Then Bill went on to reflect on the entire experience on the Bill Burr podcast with Bert Kreischer. One of the points he makes in this is how he didn't want to go up and how he would have been much more happy just to do a comedy club nearby where he made a fraction of the money. Listen to this.
And I just snapped because I didn't want to be there. Like, I just kept thinking the whole time backstage going, I didn't have to be here.
Yeah.
I could have been in a place in front of 150 people that wanted to hear my jokes. I would have made 10% of whatever I'm making tonight, and I would have been happy.
Yeah.
I don't fucking need... I've done this. I've been humiliated. I've had enough thrown at me. I'm 15 years into my fucking career. Whatever, what was it? 06? 14 years into my goddamn career. Okay? I don't want to do this anymore. Okay?
So Bill made a decision to come on this tour and make extra money, but he really didn't have to. I think this, among his friends being booed in a city he hated, just made him snap and create an unforgettable evening for everybody in attendance. Bill even says earlier in this episode that he felt like the people weren't even fully to blame, and that he lacked professionalism himself when doing his jokes, based on him not wanting to do the show.
And then I did this next joke, which I didn't realize they were playing as the radio promo, so everyone had already heard it. I don't know what, dude. I didn't want to do the show at that point. So really them booing to the level that they did was my fault. Like I wasn't a professional. What I should have done was I should have kept my head in the game to survive it. So I came out and threw gas on a fire that was already going. And
I think Bill is being a little hard on himself given the circumstances, but this level of honesty and self-reflection is still refreshing to hear because he really was embarrassed and upset about the way he handled things. Despite the fact that comedy fans loved the way he handled it, he stuck to what he felt was true and how he probably went a little too hard and far. That being said, Bill was absolutely in the right to make fun of these morons if you ask me. Bill also tells the story about how he knew things were going bad with the Philly show the second that he saw Tracy Morgan go up. Listen to this part.
I knew something was fucked up when Tracy Morgan went out, and he was supposed to do 15 to 20, and he pulled up at about 7 minutes, 50 seconds in the middle of a bit, just stopped and went, "Thank you, good night, God bless," and just put the thing down. And you know that deal, dude. You do those uptown rooms, they boo in those, and you go into the black rooms enough, you can feel a boo coming.
Bill has said how this situation did not help him sell more tickets in the short term, but to comedy fans, this would obviously end up being one of the most talked about stand-up comedy sets of all time. In the short term, this was actually an incredibly traumatizing situation for Bill, and he talks about how this moment almost made him walk away from stand-up comedy forever. If you research the Traveling Virus Comedy Tour, you will notice that there were 13 shows in the 2006 tour, and that Bill Burr only did the first 4. After the Philly incident, he refused to perform for the rest of the tour. When Opie and Anthony offered to have him in the 2007 tour that started in April, he said no because of the relentless booing and that he had already earned a Purple Heart in Camden, New Jersey. He later did a podcast with Jim Norton as well, where he talks about how a few times after the Philly set, he did some shows where people in the crowd would start to boo him, but not because they didn't like him, rather because they wanted him to go crazy and blow a fuse again the way he did in Philadelphia. And each time the crowd would do this to Bill Burr, he would simply turn around and walk off stage. Listen to him talk to Jim Norton about how the Philly rant affected him.
You fucking knocked on the door and talked me off the fucking ledge. It was the gig after the Philly gig where I was like, I knew that they were going to boo me again just to boo me. Rather than Philly, they booed me because they didn't like me. And then by the time the fucking Cleveland gig, you guys gave me so many props that the crowd wanted to see it again.
Yeah.
I go out there and I just walk out. I'm on for 2 seconds. They just start booing me, just to boo me. And I was like, look, I'm not going to pretend to get mad because you guys are pretending to boo me. And it didn't go anywhere. And I got off stage and I was fucking livid, I remember. So I was like going, oh my God, I've become the boo-em guy, and I'm going to go everywhere I go.
So luckily for Bill, he didn't box himself in and let the angry meltdown become what he was known for, and he simply didn't play that game with the audience members who booed. If you really want to learn more about the Philly incident from Bill Burr's perspective, thanks to the detectives lurking in the shadows on Reddit, I actually found this link that takes you to a blog post that Bill Burr wrote in 2006 about the events leading up to the Philly rant and the events that followed it shortly after from his own perspective. It's a very good read, and I think if you're a fan of anything comedy, it is absolutely worth your time. All in all, Bill Burr suffered in the short term from the Philly rant, and it took a massive toll on him and almost made him quit stand-up comedy 15 years into his career. But in the long term, his ability to go off script and his lack of tolerance for disrespect from the audience members in New Jersey cemented him a forever spot in the Comedy Hall of Fame. Bill Burr is a comedy legend, and that's something that nobody can ever take away from him. This was the most infamous rant in comedy history.